This is Ruben Swartz with the Sales for Nerds podcast, episode 2, part 2 of our interview with Jason Cohen. We have been talking about the importance of being honest in a sales cycle and getting to know, and also the right temperature to drink wine and whiskey. And now we're just going to jump right in and change pace a little bit and go to some stories. So now that we're kind of completely off topic, I kind of want to come back to something that you said a long time ago that inspired me that you probably don't even remember. But you were talking to some folks at Capital Factory about selling ducks and geese.
Oh, weather ducks and weather geese?
And
IT watchdogs, yeah. Oh, so it was called IT watchdogs because the company was server room climate monitoring, meaning in server rooms, if it gets too hot, stuff stops working, and sometimes it never comes back. So we sold these really cheap, at the time, devices that were also internet enabled, web enabled, and so on, and other things.
Well, that was
in the late 90s,
thing,
so that
right?
was a big deal. To have an Ethernet jack in the 90s was pretty cool, and so you could see if it was getting too hot and do something about it. And we had a lot of temperature sensors and humidity, light level, doors, all kinds of crap, and then eventually power. And we eventually sold to a company that makes power strips, who embedded our stuff in their strips and sold it for a lot of money, which they still do today. So the ducks and geese were, so it was IT watchdogs, which makes sense. And then the reason our first product was called a duck was because, you bend metal and then you got to paint it. You don't have to, I guess, but you want to paint it and put some text on it and stuff.
You want to look like a big company with a painted thing, not just a piece of sheet metal.
That's not just a big company. That looks pretty bad. So painting also, it turns out painting, you bend metal around and you dip it in the paint, and then where the metal doesn't quite join up, if you haven't soldered it, or even if you have, the paint sort of fills it in and makes it look like a solid thing. So there's a lot of good things. So we're at the paint. This is a bootstrap hardware company, which is kind of ridiculous.
In the 90s, no less.
Yeah, because everything costs money, a lot of money, and you need a lot of cash. Things go in inventory, so you need cash just to put things in inventory. So the bootstrap hardware company is very hard. Anyway, so we go to the paint store, and they're like, what color paint? You have your paint. You're supposed to buy your own paint, bring it to them, and then they do it where they dip it in with a thing and let it dry on a rack. And so on a line, kind of. And so we said, oh yeah, we haven't bought any paint. And so my co-founder, again, I learned many things from, including this, says, so you got any leftover paint? And they're like, well, yeah, actually, there's this huge vat of this disgusting yellow paint that nobody wants because someone bought it, they didn't want it, it was the wrong thing, they just left it, we got this vat of paint. We're like, let's see it. It's like this super bright yellow, and we're like, huh. Okay, so it's definitely going to be that because it's free. In fact, they'll love it because we'll use their paint that they want to get rid of, and we'll be a customer at the same time. They'll love it. So we have free paint, so we'll have to get an excuse for why this thing is yellow. And so we went through birds and other things, and eventually it was a duck. And I'll never forget the phrase. My co-founder said, "It's got to be a duck. Why? Because ducks like weather. It's a weather duck." And that's where it came from. Weather duck. So, and then later we had a big one, so we called it a goose because they're bigger. We painted it gray.
Now,
and then after that we had to be a barnyard. I mean, once you have watchdogs, ducks, geese. Oh, we would power egg. It was like a weird little egg-shaped thing that measured power. I mean, it was stupid stuff, but at that point you're a barnyard. You gotta stick with it, right?
It is kind of like, if you had thought too hard about it and you were a big company, you would say, we're never going to have barnyard things. We're going to have the XC3 3000 or something, right?
Or they would think, studies show people like barnyards, so we're going to do barnyards, but it wouldn't be right.
Right.
It would be all stupid, right? It wouldn't feel right somehow. Because see, if you see weather duck, you're like, what the hell is this thing called a duck? And you hear that story, you're like, that's awesome, guys. Good for you. Making a little company, trying to make it work. That's awesome. I'll take two, right?
And it's a cool story,
right? But if you hear we did tests of people like ducks more than geese, they go, right?
Right.
Why? Because honesty sells, no matter what it is. That's why.
So did you ever tell the customers the story about the paint?
Of course we did. It's a great story. We found some paint. That's
why it's a duck.
Of course. Yeah, people love it. Another secret is people like to. Not secret. Another tip is people like to helps companies.
Mm-hmm.
hey, you're a small company, and here's a customer who gets to help a small company succeed.
And you
That's
don't
a
sound
great
like an
thing.
asshole. You
No.
sound like someone who's trying to help.
Everyone wants to. They get to go tell their friends, hey, there's a little struggling company trying to get off the ground. The product's actually pretty good. They're trying to
Paint's
go.
a little questionable, but...
And now they're proud they're customer number 3.
Right.
We're actually their biggest customer, but I made that decision because I believe in them in any way. I wanted to give them a shot. Look, we have a plan B if it doesn't work out. But, meanwhile, they're giving us a good deal. I mean, they need to. They're a small company. But, yeah, I was part of that. That's a freaking great story.
And in the meantime, you're like... And the guy telling that story is saying, I'm going to get an alert on my email if the temperature goes wrong instead of my server's screwed.
Yeah.
And I'm going to find out Monday morning.
There's still the guy, I don't want to name names, but the guy at Lockheed Martin, there's a guy at IBM, there's a few guys at places, and gals too, not enough gals, at places that I was early on at Smart Bear. And to this day, they'll say, remember when we did this? Like, they're part of it.
Right.
They're part of it.
So you're not just selling a product, you're selling, and not just a solution, you're almost selling a movement.
Yeah, you're definitely selling the advocates, not just reputation, and you might extend to career, but there's, I hesitate to say self-worth, that's taking it maybe too far, but a little bit, in that they're a part of something else that's important, and they get to say that. Now maybe they say it on a resume, probably not. They certainly say it over beers.
Right.
And they feel it like, I help this I'm part of this company.
And especially the folks who are in a giant company, sitting in a cubicle, whether they're an executive or not,
right.
They want to do something interesting with cool people.
That's it. Yeah, and they're probably not doing it right now.
Right.
You're it. That's good. That's a good thing.
They're in a million boring meetings.
Yeah.
And if your meeting is slightly less boring because you're genuine, that's a huge differentiator.
Yeah, I want to be part of that. They want to help that. They want that to exist.
And they want to, in their meetings, they're like, I would rather meet with those people who I actually can talk to than these bullshit artists.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to give them my money. I want to give them, this guy my money.
Not just the money, but they have to go spend time on the project.
And time, yeah. Right. When it doesn't go right, and it won't. Something's going to go wrong.
Even if it goes right, they still have to meet with people.
It's funny. It's funny you say that, because this is actually how we sell even today. One of the things we always say is, so we have fantastic customer service. That's one of our things.
They do. I can vouch for that. I'm not getting paid to do it, but it's true.
We do, and we invest a lot. Half our employees are in support. We really invest heavily in tech support.
And they're actually smart and good, and they will solve your problem. It's actually impressive.
Yeah, and we have training that we invest in internally. We have a whole internal training team just for our support techs, so that they can be good, and by the way, also so that people can advance their careers and make more money here.
Right.
But we want people to make more money even here and pay them more, and so we even have a program to help do it. That's a whole other story about career pathing and so on. But we're proud of, and we invest heavily in our support team. And so, this is one of our pitches. We say, so we have the support team, blah, blah, blah. We say, listen, everyone's going to tell you we have all this platform, we have all these smart guys, we have all this stuff, and so you're going to have a great experience. And to a first approximation, some of that's largely true. But it's never true that nothing ever goes wrong. Ever.
Right.
That's just not the case. It's life. So the question is, so that's going to happen. It's absolutely guaranteed. I would love to sit here and tell you that we have 100% everything and you'll never...
Right.
But it's not true. But so the question is, when something does go wrong, then what? That's the question. In a day where nothing goes wrong, they're all this. We and our competitors are the same. But when the day comes where something goes wrong, that's when it matters. So then the question is, who has 180 people in tech support who are highly trained? Who has an account manager just for you who knows something about your account? Who, et cetera, right? Who is there ready to do that? We once had a customer who had problems for 4 days straight. We handed that thing off shift by shift for 4 days. Never had a problem. We ended up getting a glowing review of someone who had a 4-day-long problem, which is really, really long.
Right.
Because of what we did, because of how we handled it. And the conclusion that this person came to is, there is not another hosting company on earth who is capable of doing what just happened. And you know what? During the course of it, some of it was our fault, and some of it was their fault.
Mm-hmm.
They're not me, WP Engine,
right.
We're not blameless. And we didn't say we were, right? But nobody had the ability to do that, whatever was to blame.
Right.
Nobody. So I'm never leaving. We got a case study out of someone who had a horrible problem with our software because of that, right? So that's a sales pitch of something's going to, again, it's honest. Something's going to go wrong. That's honest. And then being honest allows you to plug your answer. So what are you going to do when something goes wrong? Well, we do have that. That is what we claim.
Right.
And what we'll stand behind, right?
And for the people who don't have the 180-person support team that's highly trained.
Claim something else. Then don't claim the support. Claim something else.
Here's my cell number.
Or it's not support. It's something else. Support doesn't have to be the reason, right?
But I think there's something about, something is probably going to go wrong.
Yeah.
And when it does, are you going to get a tier 3 support person in another country who doesn't know you from anybody?
Right.
Or here's my cell phone number. Call me if there's a problem. We'll fix it.
Exactly. Right. So there's that. Or it could be something else like maybe you play the simplicity card. A lot of times a small business has a simple solution. A big company has a complex solution. Now the good news about the complex solution is it handles a lot of the things that the customer wants. Mm-hmm. The bad news is complex things usually don't work at all and are scrapped after 2 years. And everyone knows this. Everyone knows. Again, if you go in there and the sales pitch is, we're just as good as big company. No, you're not. You're not. We handle all the things you need. No, you don't. It's okay. But you have simplicity. I'm just making this up. Suppose it's simplicity. Just to make a point that it doesn't have to be support. That's all I'm saying, right? You can pick anything that you have that's an advantage. And you say, look, this doesn't solve all your problems. Doesn't. Here's the thing, though. This is going to work. Exactly because it doesn't attempt to boil the entire ocean. Mm-hmm. It is going to work. It's going to solve this particular set of your problems. In the future, I will solve more. These are the risks, which are much lower than those other things. Because you're going to spend 20 times less money and 10 times less time getting this going, solving some of your problems. Then we'll still need to tackle other things, but you'll be in a position of strength, and this is going to work. The other thing, you already know is going to be 2 years of a slog, and then you're going to throw it away.
Or even if it does work, you won't get credit for it, because it'll be 2 years from now.
Yeah.
On the off chance it works, it doesn't help you.
So, there's a pitch that has nothing to do with service, just to make the point that, there's another way that a small business often can pitch simplicity. There's other things to it, just, not an infinite number of things. Big companies have lots of stuff.
Right.
And that's okay.
And I think you raised an interesting point indirectly, which is something that I struggle with, that I see a lot of small business owners struggle with, which is like they're smart people, some people believe, and they can, they can take on a variety of challenges. And so they want to broaden their scope as far as possible to try to scoop up as much stuff as possible.
Right.
Instead of saying, we've got this laser focus on whether it's simplicity or support or some other thing, that we can just win every time we encounter this. And we also know how to go find these people because we now have the characteristics.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Picking your absolutely perfect person. I wouldn't say you win every deal, but what happens is if you find that particular person, then you definitely win. And what I find is that when you zoom in, as it were, on that particular perfect customer, and you have the perfect pitch for that perfect customer, number one, you'll actually win those deals. And if you spread your bullets out on a large range, and even when you find that customer, they don't understand that you're the perfect solution, and you often miss those that you could have gotten and that you rightfully should get, because that actually is your strength, right?
Right.
And so number one, you don't want to miss those because that's too good. But the second thing I find, and again, not just in my own companies, but advising companies at Capital Factory, we've seen literally 100 companies go through there. This is a very common theme there, is when you talk very specifically to that customer, so that means what do you put on your homepage? What's in the advertisement? What's the top 3 features? What are the things you emphasize in the sales pitch? There's a lot of places that it means talking to them, right? When you talk very specifically to them, what happens is you actually cast a wider net than you think. And you have people where it's true that person, that the second person is not a perfect fit, but they're close. And because you were so clear and specific and compelling to something that was adjacent to what they want,
right,
it still convinces them.
Because it's better than the other generic thing they were considering.
That's not as exciting, it's not tangible, it's not as specific, maybe it's harder. The other thing is you can even convince them. A good example would be like version control, if I'm picking a engineering example. Is any version control system the perfect one that does everything you want? Of course not. But something like Git, there's a couple of things about Git where it sort of excites you. And so even though it's not a perfect fit, you're like, ooh, but these very specific things it does that's special and new,
Right.
I like it. And maybe that's that it works on my laptop because I have the whole repository, or maybe it's this idea that it's a Merkle tree and that's kind of cool. And for some reason we engineers love content addressed maps to things. I don't know why, but we do. I do. I don't know. I can't explain it. So maybe we just like the Merkle tree. But there's a thing there that's very specific, and it is good for its own way. But even though I'm adjacent to it, I don't love everything about it, such as, well, my repository is really big, so I don't want the whole thing. Too bad. Well, I want some people to see this, some people to see that. Too bad, everyone has it. See, it's not perfect fit, is it? But the things that it's good at is so cool, and I understand it because it's so specific and tangible, that maybe I'll choose it anyways.
So I've made an emotional decision that I want this, and then I rationalize away the other disadvantages.
Right? That's one direction is kind of a horizontal, I'll rationalize and go over there. The other one is kind of a vertical one, and this is what I mean. Maybe I'm not ready for this yet, but I want to be.
Right.
And so although it's not a perfect fit because I'm not really ready, I'm choosing it anyway because I want to be a person who is ready.
It's aspirational.
That. Yes. So that's the same kind of thing. But I'm just sort of distinguishing between I'll give up something I want because this is exciting and specific versus I'll take something I'm not ready for because I want to be ready for it. It's this, in principle, it's still I'm not a perfect fit, but I want it.
Right.
But it's kind of for different reasons. So it is a different kind of thing. I'll give you an example of so Git maybe is an example of the sideways. The vertical one, maybe actually my blog. My blog is for people that have startups. But I can tell you right now, because I've seen it in the comments and I've talked to enough people, a lot of people who read the blog have not started a company yet.
Right.
Well, why are you reading about startups and some technique about how to estimate what your cost of acquisition for whatever should be, and you don't even have a company? Why are you reading this? Because they want to be a person who starts a company.
Right.
They aspire to start a company, so they want to read something that isn't actually in the target zone of what's interesting to them or what should be relevant to them, because they want to be that person who needs this blog post.
And I will say, again, just as an aside, even if you're not starting a company, there's a lot of useful stuff on your blog that people should read anyway. But you're right.
That's very kind, but yeah, so maybe that's a weak example because it's a blog instead of a startup, so I admit that. Actually, so at WPinch I can give you a more real one, which is simply that we are a premium WordPress host, meaning we're not $5 a month, we're $29.
Yep.
Now, $29 is still not a king's ransom, but it's a lot compared to, say, GoDaddy that might be $4, right?
Especially for cheap people like me.
Yeah,
I took a long time to should I do this?
You should, because GoDaddy is amazing for what you get for the money. I don't want to put them down at all. If you're not that interested in your site, it's not that important. You shouldn't spend too much on it, of course, right? So, and you get an incredible amount of shit for $4. $4 is nothing. How can you get anything?
Right.
So it's great. It's a great ROI. It's just the question is that what you want, right? Anyway, so there are people for whom they're not getting all the traffic that they might need something like WPinch. They're not. Maybe they don't need all the security. They don't need this support. They don't call us every week on support. They don't need the support. They just want it. Right. But so you're not a GoDaddy person. You're a WPinch person, right?
Well,
and so that's very real. And so that's an aspirational thing for some people as well. So that's just an example of an aspirational thing. So again, the general principle is be very specific. Know the person or the persona, I should say, that is perfect for you, where really, you truly, absolutely, no sales pitch needed.
Right.
You honestly are absolutely, hands down, the right solution for them. No one's better because of whatever. Price, needs, features, service, whatever it is, right? And then just only talk to them on the homepage, on your Google Ads, on your demo videos, on your sales pitch, in the About Us page even. About Us page, that's a critical page. Talk only to them. They're the only people that exist. That way, when that person happens, you win them, which you deserve to, because we just defined it as a customer. You deserve to win because you are the best solution.
Right.
So let's make sure you win them. But what I'm telling you is your net is 10 times bigger than you think, because there's this whole set of people around the perfection, the perfect fit,
right,
where whether through horizontal excitement about your specific good clear message, or aspirationally, they want to be here too. And if you don't, and you're generic, we're a great host, we're fast and good, then you just miss everyone.
Right.
You excite nobody, and that's bad marketing / bad sales.
Well, it's like in Austin, right? There's, I don't know, approximately 8 million SEO companies in Austin.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many there are, but there's, right? And so I always ask them, I'd love to refer you to people. I'd like to work with you. That's complementary to my business. When should I choose you and when shouldn't I choose you? And some people have a definitive answer, especially about when someone's not a fit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, now I know. And some people are like, well, we do any SEO. And I'm like, well, okay, now you're back in the bucket with 8 million other people.
Bang.
Statistically, I will never choose you.
That's it.
I'll roll the dice and you may come up, but statistically it's never going to happen.
You know what else happens, and you've probably done this, and I have, to other people, is you have someone say, oh, we're not a fit because ... And you're like, oh, great. Well, I love you guys, but you're right, you're not a fit.
Right.
But now, 6 months later, someone's asking you, hey, do you know a good SEO person for X? And you're like, yes.
Yep.
I've never used this person, but I have a great interaction with them. You need to call them.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, you just got a referral and you're not even a customer.
Yep.
That totally happens. And it happens because you're honest, even when the answer is in the negative. And that, you could call it business karma. I definitely don't believe in supernatural things such as karma. But I actually do believe that business karma works, not because of magic,
right,
but because of what I just said. When you're honest, it works. I do think that is true. And like, I think it's nice to think of it as karma only in that it's a poetic way of saying that.
It's a shorthand.
It's a shorthand of saying that if you're honest and so forth, that good things come because people have that good interaction and then because feel like they're more of an advocate for you. So it's a very tangible process, but karma is not a bad way of poetically talking about it. So business karma is real. That's my, I'm slapping the chair here.
And I agree wholeheartedly. When I was doing my boutique consulting and couldn't sell or market anything for crap, right, all the business was word of mouth, which was dumb on a whole different level.
Yeah.
But there was word of mouth because I was honest with people.
Yeah, exactly.
Otherwise, we would have been completely hosed.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate your time. I know that you've got a million things to do. I just wanted to ask a couple questions to wrap up.
Okay.
If there's someone who's coming out of a technical background and suddenly they're like, oh shit, I'm supposed to sell stuff or market stuff,
Mm-hmm.
is there any advice you would give to that person? What would be the first thing they should do?
Well, I think we've been talking about that the whole time. We've talked about a lot of things like that. Let me say this. Think about an episode where you had a terrible sales experience. What was that like? Why was it a terrible experience?
As a buyer or a seller?
As a buyer. As
Okay.
a buyer. And it'll change depending on what your situation was, but it's probably something along the lines of they were pushy, they weren't listening, they didn't know the product, so they really were like an obstacle
right,
at best and a liar at worst, and so forth, right? Something along those lines. And then, now, if you're actually doing this, what I recommend is you go to a whiteboard and actually write down all the things you hate about salespeople / bad sales experiences.
Okay.
They're pushy. They're liars. They don't understand the product. They don't listen. All the things, right? And then draw a line vertically in the middle of the board, and then think about great sales experiences you've had because you have had them.
Right. You probably didn't even realize you were having them at the time.
Not at the time, but you've had them. It could be indirect, like a website where you read and you're like, oh my God, I have to learn this programming language. That's sales.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you think that? It could be someone selling you on a restaurant.
Yep.
Right? You got to go to this place. Why? Why did that work? That's sales.
Or the waiter when you get to the restaurant.
You were recruited to a company, and you were excited to go there. That's sales.
Mm-hmm.
Why were you excited to go to this company you basically know nothing about, except for what people tell you who are incentivized to tell you it's great?
Right.
Which is kind of sales, is it not? Why did you do that? You were on the buying end of getting that job, of going to that job. Why did you do that? What happened? Did you trust them? What was that like? What were they like? Oh yeah, well the recruiter, the funny thing is, I was like, oh yeah, recruiter, blah, blah, blah. And you know what? They actually knew their shit. And they told me this and that, and it was actually kind of interesting. So then I talked to the whatever, and then we just geeked out for an hour. It was great. And I was like, God dang, I want to work here. So what does that mean? It was honest. It was unvarnished. the person selling actually knew the product. They didn't lie. They said they didn't know when they didn't know. They connected you with the people that did know, and then they just geeked out without selling. And that actually was sales after all. Or whatever. It's up to you. You figure it out. I'm just, this is the kind of things I think about. Right? But this is the kind of things I think, and you agree, maybe not. You definitely need to take your own opinion to this, right? It's not about what I think. But think about decide what you think about what good sales looks like. Because it exists, and you need to do it. Mm-hmm. And by the way, as an entrepreneur, everything's sales. Hiring is sales, selling is sales, convincing your CTO you hired, even though you're also an engineer, to do it whatever way, sales. Like, it's all sales, okay?
Right.
And so you need to be able to be good at this anyway. If you want to raise money, not saying you should, but if you did want to, that is totally sales. Of course, media sales. Oh my God, write an article about me, sales. So in any case, if you're an entrepreneur, you have to become good at sales because it is a lot of what you do. So then you realize, sales often sucks. In fact, you might even say 90% of it sucks. But it doesn't have to. And when you look into things that are good sales, you realize, well, I can do that. Because really, it comes down to a lot of things we've already discussed, so I don't need to rehash it. But these things like honesty and passion and so on, and following what you know to be right and true, and even saying when something's bad, saying it, and all that kind of stuff, it works. And in fact, it's the things that go in that right column of the things that are good. And you realize that, well, I can do, if I'm allowed to do that, if I'm allowed to not have slides, if I'm allowed to make fun of other salespeople in a sales process, and I'm allowed to do it my way, well, then I can do it. Exactly. So maybe that gives you the confidence to do that, in fact. Right?
And then and going back to that blog post you wrote about being a small company, mm-hmm. who is disallowing you from doing that? It's your own head.
Yeah, nothing.
And that was the thing that really unlocked a lot of stuff for me.
Now, look, you still have to deal with the fact that company has constraints. It has a budget. It has a sales process. It has a buying process, I should say. It has politics. You don't get to wave those away.
And you're not going to bat 1,000.
No, but at least that's the correct challenge. That is the sales challenge, to navigate that shit. That's the challenge. Not all this other stuff that you're layering on top of it. That is the actual challenge that's hard. And there's no silver bullets. There's a lot of course, tricks, and I'm sure you have a lot of things about that and so forth. That's a whole universe of, sales techniques and stuff, right? But that is the challenge, not how to make a deck. That should not be the challenge. It should be the actual challenge.
Right.
So I would say do that. So your question was, I'm an engineer now. I'm a salesperson. What do I do? I would do that exercise. I've done that exercise. I'm not saying that having not done it myself. It's enlightening, and it literally shows the way, because you say, oh, well, then I need to not do that stuff which I didn't want to do anyway, of course.
Right.
And I need to do these things, and some of those things you think I can do that naturally. And other things you think, okay, I'm going to need to figure out how to do this. So even being honest, you're like, all right, I want to be honest, and specific, and talk to my correct audience. But who is my correct audience? Aha. Okay, that might take a lot of research. Fair enough. So it's not that it's necessarily all the answers, but at least it's a direction. It's a not this, yes this, directional thing.
Right.
That's helpful, because that starts setting off the right questions about what should I do next, what should I get good at, what should I practice at, is it okay if I do X? It starts answering some of those questions, so that's useful. So I would do that, and also that will. If you're thrust in there, whether you're an entrepreneur or otherwise, you often think like, well, I don't want to be a salesperson, right? This sucks. Salespeople suck. So it's also an exercise that gets you into a positive frame of mind of like, I'm going to become good at this. It's useful to become good at this. Life requires me to become good at this.
Right.
Marriage is sales too, by the way. Like, this is probably just a good idea to become, if not exceptional at, then at least capable at, right? Like, this is probably just a good idea. So if I become capable at sales, if not, and maybe not exceptional, but capable, and then it all goes to hell and I go back to other things, that was probably still a good use of my time. Mm-hmm. And if you can say that, now we're into like just living a life worth living kind of territory.
Right.
Good. You've learned a skill that you'll use forever, and a mindset that's useful in lots of situations every day. Well, geez, that sounds useful. Mm-hmm. That doesn't sound like a waste of time, and we engineers don't like to waste time. So at least this is it might also emotionally get you to a place of, okay, Okay, so this is worth it. This is useful. Hopefully it's useful right now, but at minimum it's useful like for my life.
Right.
So this is good. So that hopefully that's a mind state that would be useful to exit with.
I think that's great advice. So everyone get a whiteboard or get your favorite notebook or whatever, get a spreadsheet, whatever it is that you need to have 2 columns and dive deep on what that is. And I think that was one of the things that confused me when I got into sales, because most of the salespeople I've encountered in my life have been terrible. And so my archetype of the salesperson was the terrible salesperson. Yes. And I had this terrible like engineering averse reaction, right? Like I was the guy who had to come in and implement the stuff that someone had promised that didn't make any sense. Yeah,
that reputation's earned. 90% is shit. But hold on, aren't 90% of engineers shit too?
Right.
Aren't they?
Definitely.
Okay.
And of course, we're in the top 10%, so we know.
Always.
Right.
Right. So and what you find is in all things, average is pretty shitty. Exceptional people are very rare in all things. In sales, yes. But is sales unique in that? Come on. No way. Of course not. Exceptionalism is rare everywhere. That's why it's called exceptionalism. And so, of course it's exceptional in sales. So what are you going to do? To hold up the average and say, I'm going to do this? Hell no.
Well, and I think the other thing that was an interesting revelation for me that, again, took far too long was, I thought the worse a human being you were, the better a salesperson you were.
Yeah, right.
and I'm sure there are some people who are terrible human beings who are great salespeople, but for the most part, I realized looking back, the best salespeople were actually the best people.
Yeah.
And most of them were not engineers. They knew nothing about technology, but they really cared about the customer's problem. It's like, I can be like that and feel good.
Absolutely. If you don't care about other people at all or their success, which I'm not judging, it's a kind of a sociopathic thing of like, I just don't care about other people. And I actually feel like there's a lot of engineers who are like that.
Yep.
We're Vulcans and we don't really care. I think that's totally fine. It's just you shouldn't do sales.
Right.
It's totally fine, but you should work on, I don't know, the next distributed multi-master file system because it doesn't matter if you're sociopathic doing that. But if you're going to do sales, like, you should probably care that the other person is successful. So if you are sociopathic and you don't really care, then you could at least think, if I did care about this person and their success, what would I do?
Right.
And the way you can, as a Vulcan who doesn't actually care about them, the way you can think about it is, because I think I'm like halfway there. I halfway don't give a crap ever about other people. I admit that. But you can think this: if you want to be super selfish and sociopathic about it, you can still do it this way. You can say, all right, I don't actually care about them, but the way I'm going to make the most money is if they are successful. Period. The end.
Mm-hmm.
Because I will make the sale. Because they will renew. Because they will tell their friends. Because it will grow within that company. Like all of the things that will make them give me more money, either directly or indirectly, all hinges on them being genuinely successful. Because if they buy it and they're not successful, I don't get the advocacy, I don't get the growth, I don't get the renewal, I don't get all the money and customers that I get if they're successful. So forget about them as a people. If they are not personally, as a person, successful, their reputation, the actual project, the business result they're going after, if that doesn't happen, I don't get all that.
Right.
And all this is for nothing. All this is a waste of time. So that's a very Vulcan way, zero emotion, zero empathy way of seeing that you still need to make sure the customer is successful.
Well, and even if you don't care about the money, right? Like most people want to work on something that matters somehow.
Yeah, sure.
And so, if you can flip bits in your cubicle, and if no one cares, does it matter? Like my thought is,
it might. I mean, I think it would be fun to work on a distributed file system, distributed multi-master file system that no one used. It would be amazing to. A lot of waves have broken on that wall, and it'd be kind of fun to take a crack at it.
But wouldn't it be cooler if people actually used it?
It would definitely be cooler.
Right, like it's exponentially cooler.
Yes, it would definitely be exponentially cooler. But I still think I think with the argument I just made, you can make an argument that has zero emotion, zero empathy, and even zero, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And still come to the conclusion that you've got to make this person successful at their goals.
I buy that.
Because it's the only way that you're gonna get what you want selfishly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, hopefully, there's some emotion there too, but it's okay if there isn't. It's totally okay. I really there's a lot of touchy-feely stuff now, especially in startups and especially in the kind of valley culture, and that's fine. In fact, culture is one of the biggest topics here at WP Engine. I can go on for hours about it, even though I'm a Vulcan as well. So I think that's a good thing that people are, millennials care about purpose, and that companies, startups in general, care about culture. I think these are good things, but I think these principles of sales, you can take a really cold sociopathic view and still come to the same conclusion about what's important about sales. And you can take an analytical approach that analyzes what makes the customer successful in their own eyes, because that's what's going to make me the most money, and you will come out fine.
And either of those approaches are fine for sort of the engineering mindset. You don't have to be the extroverted quarterback of the football team.
I'm not an extrovert. I'm a forced introvert. So I like things like this where it's one-on-one, and I don't like parties. And when there's a party, I'll usually go outside, and a few people are there, and then that's great. You don't have to be extroverted. It helps, because if you like people and you're energized by being around people, that obviously is commensurate with sales, in which you're around people all the time, virtually or otherwise. So it helps if you're extroverted. It helps if you have empathy.
Unless you mistake that extroversion for I have the sales skills I need. And
yes.
Right?
Well, that's
so a lot of people, that's what you end up with the BS salespeople.
Yeah. So the one thing that's true about that is it is true that people tend to buy from people they like. That is true.
Mm-hmm.
Even with all the other stuff in the business cases, it is true that people will buy from people they like. That is also true. These are all dimensions that overlay, okay? So if they don't like you but the business case is good, and someone else's business case is less good but they like you, who's going to win? Different people at different times. That's the answer, right? The more analytical the actual decision inside the company, the less that's going to matter, right? But you can't get away. It's true. People buy from those they like. That is absolutely true. If you're not extroverted and you're not that kind of jock person, then maybe that's true. On the other hand, there are so many people that hate the jock.
Mm-hmm.
How many people love the jock in high school? A few people do, but most don't actually. And so you'll lose the sale to the person who likes the jock, but you'll get the sale to people that don't. And there's a lot of those people.
Right.
Again, sales is not 100%. You can't play the 100% game. Just as a person running for president can't play the game, well, how do I get all the votes? That's not the question. The question is, how do you get enough of the votes in the right places? That's the only question running for president, not all the votes. That's stupid, right? So the goal isn't getting all the sales. The goal is getting the sales that you should be able to get. Don't lose the ones you should be able to get. Like, a Republican shouldn't lose a Republican vote. And get enough of the other ones, right? Like, in sales is kind of similar. So play your game, your way, with the arguments that you would like to hear if you were on the other side of the table. Having an outward mindset, as it's called, of what would make the other person successful, which, if you're emotional, then make it emotional what would make the other person successful. But if you're analytical and you don't care about them, still ask what analytically would make them successful, because that will make you successful.
And you could just ask them, how do you measure success?
Yep.
And people will tell you. And if they're analytical, they might give you a bunch of numbers.
Yeah.
If they're more emotional, they say, I get to go home at 5 o'clock on Friday instead of being here all night, whatever it is.
Yeah.
They'll tell you what makes them successful.
They will. Typically, a typical question is like, let's say it's 6 months from now and it's a raging success. Why? What happened? What does this look like? Like, that's a way to prompt that question, right? And actually, the reverse question is really great. Like, hey, listen, it's a year from now. It's an utter disaster. Nothing. It's a failure. Why? What happened? It's a fantastic discussion, because what you're essentially doing is identifying risks.
Right.
And then you turn that around and put that in the presentation you give their boss. Now you look like a genius, because you just identify the risks that are relevant to that company, and you know it, and you've said it, and you have a few words on some of them how to mitigate it a bit, and maybe others were like, you know what, we actually don't have a plan yet of how to mitigate this. We'll either have to accept it, or it'll just take more work to do it, but we can get started without it while we figure it out.
Oh my God,
risks. What a great pitch.
Right.
You kidding me? You can tell me the pitches that are relevant to me and I agree? You've thought of risks I hadn't even... Okay, look, every executive goes into a meeting like that, but me too, thinking of risks. I already know some of the risks. If you don't, the pitcher, boy, you look like an idiot, because you don't know your own business. You're not in command of your own business, we like to say. You're not managing your own project. That's a smaller way of saying it. You're not in command of the situation. Because you can't even identify the risk that me, someone who's not even involved in the project, already knows the risk is there. Because it's life.
Right.
I've been doing this a while, so I know, right, some of the risks. And you don't even know those. You freaking don't understand your own business. On the other hand, then you get people where like they just rattle off 6 things. And you're like, oh wow, no, I didn't even think about that. Ooh, that's good. And even when something's a high risk, it's like, yeah, but you know what it is? So I think you guys got it.
Right, and this is important to me.
Yeah, I see you've got it because you were able to name it.
Right.
That means you're in command of it. So it's there, but I feel so comfortable greenlighting this now. Because I know that you are in command of this project. You're in command of the business. I trust you. I understand that you already know way more than I do about it. That's exactly what I want. The last thing I want is a pitch in which I know everything you just said. That's the terrible pitch. You're supposed to be the expert. You're supposed to have done this 100 times. You're supposed to... I should come away with this having learned something, going, oh my God, these are the experts. I want to delegate all this to them. I want to just have them run with it, including the open-ended risks.
Right.
Because they're in command of it more than me. Perfect. Go. Let's
go.
go.
Like if you go to the heart surgeon and one heart surgeon says, oh, that's no problem, it's easy, nothing ever goes wrong, and the other guy's like, here are the 20 things that go wrong and here's what we do.
Yeah.
Who's going to open you up?
Exactly. The good. I want the guy, oh my God, there's 20 things that go wrong. Well, look, with the other guy, there was also 20 things that go wrong. He just didn't know what they were. Oh, shit.
Right.
Or he wasn't honest.
Right.
Or he wasn't honest.
Either way, I don't want him cutting me open.
Either way. You want someone who's in command and admitting the faults, the risks, other negatives, whatever you want to say, that is being in command of the situation.
Now, especially when someone's an entrepreneur, they may not even know, right? Like they're new at this. So how do you take that honest approach? You say, here are the things that I know that I've identified, and there will probably be other things that go wrong too.
You could take a general, things go wrong, and that's why you need a boutique because when here's a way I have said it in the past, and in other contexts, but I'll transpose, is in a world in which you can't see the future, the risks themselves are unknown, much less the solutions. This is a very agile method of thinking, right? You can't know, so you have to take it as it comes, right? In a world where you cannot predict the future, you can't have a solid plan and execute it. In that kind of world, you ask, what do I need from my people, my tools, my software, my vendors, etc., to deal with an uncertain future? I need a certain kind of person, and a certain kind of software, a certain kind of tools. So, for example, if I know exactly how this financial project is going to go, and it's going to take 2 years, then I do want a specialized tool just for that, that's going to guide me through this very complicated but very well understood process. That's what I want. I don't want somebody figuring out for the first time. I don't need you. I need something that's going to do this for 2 years. But on the other hand, if I'm embarking on something that is unknown, I don't even know what the risks are. I don't even know how long this is going to take. I don't even know the cost. Then what I don't want is IBM. I don't want someone who's going to come in and say, let's try to plan out the next 18 months and put out a Gantt chart, because that's not what it is. I need someone that's comfortable with ambiguity, that's comfortable pivoting, that is aware enough to call out problems every day, even though it makes them look bad, so that we can fix it and not go on and then really be in trouble. I need honesty. So you could go on. I also need someone who will be not expert, but very observant and careful about what's going on. I can't have someone on autopilot. Oh, I'll just execute the plan. That's autopilot. I need someone who's always questioning, always wondering, because we're in an uncertain world in this example, right? In other words, I need a completely different set of tools, people, software, process. I need different things in an uncertain world. In an uncertain product world, I need labs. Just freaking try stuff. In a certain product world, I need a roadmap with deliverables that the sales team and marketing are going to launch at events. That's a certain product world.
Or factory to just churn
A factory, right, exactly. That's even more certain, a factory. Now, look, and every business has different projects which demand different things. At WPH right now, we have every gamut we just said. In support, we have a factory. That ticket has to be done well, and we do thousands a day. That's a factory kind of thing, right? In product, we have kind of the middle ground, but we also have labs because we have to be able to play, or we'll never find out serendipitous things, right? So different projects demand different things. You can't just take one process or one software or one mentality or one plan, blah, 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 and apply it to all things. That's just wrong. Different things demand different things. So what I would say to you, because your original question was, I'm an entrepreneur, I don't know yet what I don't know, what do I do? And I would say, okay, well then you are in an uncertain future, and so you need an uncertain future pitch. In other words, hey, the next guy's going to come in and have a whole plan. This is how it works, these are the phases, this is what we call them, this is how we track it, blah, 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 blah. And here's the thing. The world is not that certain. We all wish it were. You hear that pitch and go, great, these guys know what they're doing. This is going to be great. But we've all done big projects, and we all know what happens. It doesn't go that way. It's 2 times later than they said, and it's 2 times more expensive than they said every goddamn time. You know why? Because it doesn't go to plan. That's why. It just doesn't do that. It's just, we want to believe that's how the world works, and so we try it. But we all have done that before, and we know better. That isn't the way things unfold.
And I think you make the case that if it doesn't unfold that way, and they're like, no, we got this, it's not a good fit for you because it's commoditized. It's not.
Just even saying we know what's going to happen in 12 months is not true. Now, they're not lying in the sense of being evil. It's just that this is the pitch they know. But we all know that life doesn't unfold in that manner. It's a delusion. We want that delusion because it feels like we're in control. Okay. But we all know that that's not how big projects go. It's not true. It is a delusion. So what I offer you, and again I'm talking as the entrepreneur who themselves doesn't know, and thus is making the pitch this way, right? So I am comfortable with that ambiguity. I am comfortable with the fact that we don't know how the plan will unfold. Will we have a plan? Of course. Will it unfold that way? No. And I'm comfortable with that. I'm not going to come back to you rending my hair because, oh, it's not going according to plan, we need to I'm going to say, we knew this was going to happen, we just didn't know where, because that's life. And when it happens, we're comfortable with that. We go, yeah, look, it's not great that it didn't go according to plan, but it's expected. And we're comfortable with that change, and now we're going to make a new thing, a new plan, new whatever. Whatever it is that we do to react to it. We're comfortable with that. And anyone that gives you a 12-month plan is by definition not comfortable with ambiguity. We are. And that's life. That's reality. So the question is, do you want to pretend like you have it in a plan that's going to unfold? Or do you want to go with someone who has a plan but is looking for how to change it? We're wanting it because we know it's true. Right. And so we're always on the lookout for that. So rather than coming to you with our embarrassed that it didn't go according to plan, now confused of what to do, we're going to say, we expected this, we just didn't know where and when. Well, here it is, and now we're going to act. We're calm, we know how to do this, and we're going to take whatever that is and work on it together because we're partners. And that's what partners do in a world that's uncertain. So that's just a off the top of the head, of course, way to say, well, if you yourself don't know, then you can't write it down. So how do you make it a positive that the future is uncertain?
So it's like, instead of here's the 12-month battle plan for this grand army, we're the special forces, we're going to get there, everything's going to get screwed up on the way.
Doesn't special forces have to deal with whatever they see when they get there?
And it's all going to go wrong.
But you knew where everyone was going to be in what room of what building, and that's exactly how it was? Of course not. Of course you're going to have to improvise. Of course. So the only problem is pretending like that's not true. That's the problem. Right. Right? Now I can make an equally strong argument the other way for someone that knows what they're doing. But the scenario was you don't know what you're doing. How do you make that up? How do you, in a weird way, make that an advantage?
Well, and even if you know what you're doing, then you just are able to specify the risks better. There's no guarantee that it's going to be a smooth path.
Now, ultimately, there are companies that are going to go with the plan, right? The plan people. It's okay. It's okay. And they're not necessarily wrong. That's another thing. Just because they didn't pick you, they're not necessarily wrong.
They're just the wrong fit.
They're the wrong fit. They don't want a gunslingering agile thing. They're uncomfortable with that. That's understandable. And by the way, the people with a plan, they probably know more about it. Okay, maybe it won't go exactly according to their plan, but they've probably done it like 200 times, and you haven't. So, maybe there is some value there.
Find a better fit.
Yeah. So it's okay. No hard feelings. It's fine. It's fine.
It kind of goes back to get to know. If it's not a good fit, shake hands, leave.
Yeah, fine. Because some guy who's got some woman who has a startup is going to ask that person, hey, I need someone to do this project. And that person's going to go, oh, you would love these guys. We hated them. All they did is talk about Agile and whatever. But she's going to say, look, I tried talking to these people and all they gave me these plans. I know they're crap. I need someone who's like, just like wing it with me. And they're like, oh, I got the people for you. Yeah. We told them to hit the road. But you're going to love them. It's true. It happens. It does happen.
And this kind of brings me back to another blog post of yours that I really appreciated. And I think it's an analogy that a lot of engineering geeks will appreciate. You're talking about like the 90% utilization fallacy, right? Where you want to be running it close to capacity as possible. And you make the analogy of servers. And if you've got a server at 50% capacity, you're overspending. You should get it to 99% or whatever. And if you need multiple ones, you get more of them. And then you want to run them all at 90% capacity. But then if you have any failure in any place, everything goes to shit.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs, especially when they go from technology into sales and marketing, all this stuff, like they were already at 110% on the technology side, and now they're trying to do all this other stuff. And so they're completely overextended, and they're not doing well at any of their tasks. Do you have anything to say for them?
Yeah, well, that's normal. I mean, the CEO of any company usually has some kind of specialty. There's the sales CEO, there's the marketing CEO, there's this engineering CEO, finance CEO. In other words, they have some kind of background, and they're extra good at that thing.
Okay.
But they're the CEO. The CEO has to run everything. I didn't say good at everything, but they have to manage everything. And so it's the definition of the job of the CEO that you have to manage everything even though you are not an expert or possibly even shitty at those things. And for the good of the company, you have to do the best job better than you can do yourself at all those things for the company. And when you're small, you have no choice. You just have to do everything, and it is what it is, right? As you grow, the challenge becomes creating an executive team where every single person on that executive team is leagues better than you are at that subject.
Right.
If you haven't done that, you haven't done your job because you're sub-optimizing the business. Then that puts you in a weird position where you are the leader of the company and every single direct report is way more qualified at doing that job than you are, and yet you have to manage them. And that's weird. That's a strange dynamic. How do you tell them what to do if they're better at it than you? But of course, that is the job. Not to tell them what to do, of course, but to hire and manage and align and so forth this team. There's other parts of the job, but this is one of the primary jobs. So at a bigger scale, that's a whole executive team and departments. At a zero scale, that's you just doing it yourself as best you can. And so at the smallest scale, what I would say is you have to pick out what is really important right next for the company. It's usually getting more customers.
Right.
Engineers want to go make another feature because we know how to.
Right.
But usually the answer is get another customer. So that's usually where we need to focus. Maybe it's we got some customers, but support is a problem, and sometimes that's it, or marketing. But usually it's getting customers. So the question is, how do you do the best at that? Not you personally. How does the company do best? And how do you get someone involved who is way better than you at it? So I would say, you're sucking at different things. That's reality, and you have to retain the ego, and ask, how can I get the best possible talent, whether it's part-time if it's small, on the most important stuff only if it's small. And as it grows, then it's true everywhere, right?
Or these days, even just signing up for some SaaS thing that delivers some of that for you.
Yeah, sure. So their focus is always important and difficult. It's true for us even now at our size. So it's always true, but it just kind of changes. What it means to focus changes as you grow, but focus is always important. So when you're really tiny, there's nobody around, then the question is, okay, well, to your point, if you just do everything poorly, that is clearly not good for the business. And most things you do will just be shit. So the question is, what is it that is really important to do now? Like one or maybe two things. Again, getting a customer is probably the answer. And then you say, okay, so how do I spend 70% of my time on that?
Right.
Some people go so far as to say, don't pay your bills unless they send you the third notice and then pay them. Like that's how far to focus on what you need and only do the very bare minimum and everything else. So I think that's actually, not necessarily that particular example, it's maybe too far, but that mindset of I'm going to very much focus on what absolutely needs to happen next for the business and how to maximize that. It may mean me doing it, or may mean somebody else doing it to free me to do what I'm good at. So very early on, that kind of focus is paramount.
Okay. So just figuring out what is the next thing, and it's probably not the engineering thing you're thinking about. It's
probably not.
Customer focused.
If you have zero product, then maybe it is. If you've done a lot of customer development and that you've kind of wrung out that rag as much as you can, and so the only thing left is to build it, then okay. If you haven't even done that, then that's first. I did that myself. I've walked that walk. That's where this company came from, doing that. But once you have a product that's a reasonable, version 1 or 2, and people can use it to solve a problem, then usually the problem is not enough people are doing that.
Right.
And not that if you add one more feature, then the floodgates will open and everyone will show up and buy it. That's probably not true. But we're engineers, so it's easy to we want to do the things that were easy and natural and indeed fun for us,
right?
Which is to write code. So if you are the CTO, then you get to do that. But if you're the CEO, then your job is to make the company successful, not to make features. If making a feature is the next most important thing for the company, then by all means, do it.
And I would say, to validate that, have people telling you that or writing checks to you to do that, not just because you're sitting in your office by yourself imagining that feature would be...
If the check is written, then yes. But too often it's, I'll buy it if, and then you do it and they don't buy.
Right.
Meanwhile, you've missed all the people that would have bought right now with what you've got now, and you didn't focus on them. So you chased this person that wanted what you didn't have, instead of the people that already want what you already have. That's where your meat is. So if your product isn't even an MVP, then okay, I guess you need to get it to MVP. Fair enough. But once you have an MVP, like if there aren't a couple hundred people that have bought it, and it's not to say you're never going to fix a bug or do a feature, like,
right.
Of course, right? Like, but is that your focus? Again, 70-30 or something. Are you spending 10 hours a day coding and an hour a day on AdWords? Probably. That's probably wrong, right? It should probably be like 3 days out of the week marketing and selling, and 2 days out of 2 days out of the week writing code, and then the other 2 days out of the week,
calling people up on the phone.
Yeah, like there should probably be a lot more of what you're not doing because it's not as fun or you don't want to. It's not natural. You're scared. There's lots of reasons, but just think again from what does the business need? As the CEO, that's your job, is to do whatever the business needs. Period. The end. There's clearly no other thing than to make the business successful.
And hopefully, some of the stuff that you've said earlier, people can take that and say, you know what? Maybe it's not quite as natural to me as writing code, but I can go do that. I can go be honest. I can help people solve problems. I don't have to be this person that I'm not in order to do my job.
Oh, don't be a person you're not. Actively don't do that. You'll be a worse salesperson because I hopefully throughout this interview it's been very clear. Honesty wins, period, the end. It wins, honesty.
And if it doesn't, do you really want to be in there?
No. And whatever you're faking, you're shitty at. You're bad at faking that. It won't work. It won't work anyway. You're bad at it.
Spend your time doing what you're good at.
Yes.
So one last question. You can have any bottle of wine. I finally stumped him.
I would say there's an what's the winery called? I'm forgetting what it's called, but they have a Barbera. So it's an Italian winery, of course. I'm forgetting their name though, because again, this is not my forte at all. But I had it once, and once again, the guy who owned the vineyard was showing us this, and I had it, and it was the first time I had it was a Barolo. It was not a Barbera, it was a Barolo, which is like a thicker, kind of like a Barbera, but deep. And it was just amazing. Like I never tasted anything like it. It was really like one of those like, okay, this is freaking incredible. And it was like $85 a bottle, and at the time, I'd never spent anywhere like 5x of that, right, or a fifth of that. And I left with 2 bottles of it, and it was very special. I always think about that Piedmont Barbera Barolo as like amazing. Like I'm sure it was very good. But although of course it's whatever your taste buds are, but I have this fond memory of the environment and the moment of that, which is probably a lot of taste in general, is the environment. So I guess that that Barbera, especially because I was like, I'm shelling out for this.
Right.
Like, I was here. That I like that.
It's kind of like you're saying, you may have an emotional attachment to it, and it delivers on what you need, and so you're sticking with it.
I think that's a lot of it, which is a sales technique as well.
That's right.
That's why people like they'll buy from who they like, or who they have a nice association with. I think that's why people play golf. I've never played golf, well, at all. And also not to make a sale, and it didn't matter.
The only time I've ever closed a sale on a golf course, I was playing putt-putt with my nephew.
Okay, that's good. I'll take that. I played putt-putt before.
But I didn't close the deal with my nephew. Someone called and I'm on my cell phone closing a deal, and I felt so like a salesperson, because otherwise that would never happen.
I'm on the green. Of course, so is a purple pirate, so I don't know.
I'm only 2 over par.
Yeah.
Doing really well.
It's my left is an alligator, to my right is a windmill. But I'm technically on the green at the moment.
At least on the fairway.
I just have a lot of friends, apparently.
Well, Jason, thank you so much for your time. I hope this is really useful to people. I know that your advice has been useful to me in my career, and I know that by passing along to other people, it's been useful. So I hope that it continues to be that, and all the best. Obviously, I am very excited about WP Engine because I'm on there. I move some of my customers on there when they have trouble. So, again, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. It's fun.
Thanks for listening. That's the end of part 2. If you somehow did part 2 without listening to part 1, you can go back and listen to that. Check out the show notes on salesfornerds.io. And of course, if this has been helpful to you, subscribe on iTunes, recommend it to a friend, give a rating and a review. And if you've got questions or comments or feedback on using any of the techniques that we talked about, submit them on salesfornerds.io or by email at help@salesfornerds.io. Until next time.